When I first drove through the gates of Willow Creek, I thought I had found salvation. After years of cramped apartments and sleepless nights running a logistics startup, I had finally sold my company and was ready for a new chapter. My wife, Ellen, had passed away 3 years earlier, leaving me to raise our son Jake alone. He was 10 now, a quiet kid who spent most of his free time tinkering with model airplanes. I wanted more for him. I wanted him to have a real neighborhood, a place where kids could ride bikes until dusk and parents waved from porches. Willow Creek looked perfect. Manicured lawns, tidy cul-de-sacs, and a pristine lake glimmering at the center. The real estate agent handed me a thick binder of HOA documents. I flipped through a few pages, saw the usual boilerplate about dues and maintenance, and signed without thinking. I was blinded by the vision of what life here could be for Jake. That, as I would later learn, was my first mistake. On our second week in the neighborhood, I surprised Jake with something special. A used but well-kept canoe, painted forest green, with room for both of us. My plan was to teach him to paddle, to fish, to feel the same thrill Ellen and I once did when we camped near rivers in our 20s. Jake's eyes lit up the moment he saw it strapped to the roof of our SUV. He ran his hand along the wooden oars like they were sacred artifacts. For the first time in years, I saw pure joy break through the sadness that usually clouded his face. I stored the canoe neatly at the side of our driveway, planning to haul it down to the community dock later that week. That's when the knock came. A sharp rap on my door, precise like a gavel striking wood. A woman in a navy blue blazer stood there, posture rigid, hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She introduced herself as Margaret Holloway, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "That canoe," she said, her gaze flicking past me to the driveway. "It cannot remain there. Section 7.4 of our covenant prohibits visible recreational watercraft." I explained that it was temporary, but I planned to move it to the dock. She tilted her head, feigning sympathy. "There's a waiting list for dock storage. It's currently closed. You'll need to store it off-site. Otherwise, fines accrue at $100 per day." I wanted to argue, but Jake was standing behind me, listening. I swallowed my frustration and nodded. Margaret's smile widened. "I trust you'll do the right thing. We value harmony here." Then she turned sharply and walked away. The next morning, I found a bright orange violation notice taped to my front door. The words "non-compliance and penalties" leapt out at me in bold print. That same week, I received citations for my grass being uneven, for Jake's basketball hoop being unsightly, and even for leaving garbage cans at the curb for 30 minutes too long. It was clear. Margaret wasn't just enforcing rules, she was targeting me. At the first HOA meeting I attended, Margaret put on a performance. Standing at the podium in the community center, she displayed slides of recent violations threatening our standards. The photos were all of my property. The canoe, the hoop, the trash bins. Neighbors murmured. Some shot me sympathetic glances, but no one spoke up. Jake sat beside me, his small hands clenched in his lap, cheeks burning with embarrassment. Afterward, an older man named Frank pulled me aside. He lived 2 doors down, a retired school principal with kind eyes. "Don't take it personally," he whispered. "Margaret does this to anyone she doesn't like. She drove out the Wilsons last year. She'll try to do the same to you. Why doesn't anyone stop her?" I asked. Frank sighed. "She's got allies on the board, friends on the city council, even a brother-in-law on the zoning commission. Most folks are too scared to cross her." That night, I found Jake crying in his room. "Maybe we should move," he said softly. "Everyone hates us here." My chest tightened. We had come for a fresh start, but Margaret had poisoned it from the beginning. I resolved then. No one was going to force us out. I began researching everything about the HOA. I pored over documents, attended every meeting, recorded Margaret's speeches. That's how I met Helen Drake, the HOA secretary. She was in her 50s, timid, and always seemed nervous around Margaret. One night after a meeting, she slipped me a manila envelope. "I can't watch her do this anymore," she whispered. Inside were altered meeting minutes, falsified signatures, and proof that Margaret had awarded maintenance contracts to companies owned by her friends at grossly inflated prices. The landscaping contract alone was 40% above market rate. The pool maintenance company had been formed just weeks before receiving a lucrative deal. Margaret wasn't just power-hungry, she was corrupt. The real breakthrough came when Frank showed me a discreet real estate listing. Margaret's house. She was planning to sell quietly, cash out, and move to a wealthier neighborhood across town. My mind sparked with possibility. If Margaret thought she could torment people and then walk away unscathed, she had no idea who she was dealing with. I contacted an old friend, Aaron, now a real estate broker, and my attorney, Vanessa. Together we formed a shell company. Through Aaron, we made an all-cash offer on Margaret's home. Full asking price, quick close, total confidentiality. Margaret, desperate for a clean sale, accepted without hesitation. Weeks later, the deal was done. I now owned the home of the very woman who had tried to destroy me, and I had one more move planned. Margaret had scheduled a farewell gathering at her house to celebrate what she bragged was the removal of disruptive elements from our community, meaning me and Jake. Everyone was invited except us. Perfect. The morning of the party, I had the canoe delivered and placed squarely in Margaret's circular driveway. I set up a folding chair beside it and waited. By noon, guests began arriving. Confusion rippled through the crowd as they noticed me sitting calmly by my canoe. When Margaret finally stepped outside, her face went pale. "What are you doing?" she snapped. "Enjoying my property," I replied evenly. "This is my house," she shrieked. I handed her the deed, notarized in ironclad. Gasps spread through the crowd. "Actually, Margaret, you sold it. This driveway. It's mine now." She called the police, screaming about trespassing, but when the officers arrived, I calmly presented the paperwork. They sided with me. Watching her expression collapse in front of her stunned guests was a moment I'll never forget. But I wasn't finished. I revealed loudly enough for all to hear the documents Helen had given me. Proof of financial improprieties, falsified minutes, and selective enforcement of rules. Neighbors muttered angrily. A few board members looked like they might be sick. Then, the final blow. Margaret's own daughter, Emily, a law student, stepped forward. Trembling, she said, "I can't stay quiet anymore. I've seen my mother forge signatures, manipulate votes, and target families she didn't like. She even told me the HOA was her personal kingdom." She held up printed emails as proof. The crowd turned on Margaret instantly. The board demanded her resignation. For once, she had no words. Over the following weeks, the community began to unravel the mess Margaret had created. I led an initiative to reform the HOA with transparent finances, independent audits, and rules focused on actual safety and community, not aesthetics and control. For the first time, neighbors who had lived in fear spoke openly. Kids played basketball in driveways without shame. Jake made friends. Margaret tried to sue to undo the house sale, but Vanessa crushed her in court. Eventually, I gave her two choices: buy back the house at a hefty premium and agree never to serve on an HOA again, or rent it from me under absurd rules I drafted to mirror the tyranny she'd inflicted. She bought it back, humiliated and defeated. Months later, Willow Creek felt like a different place. We held cookouts by the lake, started a mentorship program for kids, and created a communal dock open to everyone. Jake flourished. He spent hours with friends paddling the canoe, laughing in a way I hadn't heard since Ellen was alive. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the lake, Jake turned to me in the canoe and said, "Mom would be proud of you, Dad." I swallowed hard, my chest aching but full. For the first time in years, I felt peace. We hadn't just defeated Margaret, we had reclaimed our home, our community, and ourselves. Sometimes, the only way to win against tyranny is to learn the rules better than the tyrant. And when someone tells you your canoe isn't welcome, sometimes the best response is to buy the whole damn dock.